right, for Bob Chick, I'm Sean Ray. We're talking about the year 2021 in review, and it went super fast. As a matter of fact, it felt like we missed part of the year, Bob.
We did.
Because typically we get things started off in January with the LA Fit Expo, which was canceled. Then we go straight to Columbus, Ohio in March, which was
canceled.
But we wound up in Florida, not New York, for the New York Pro, where we saw the arrival of the mutant, Nick Walker.
Yeah, we've had all kinds of flip-flopping shows ever since COVID, Sean, as you know. So New York ended up in Tampa, and then
Chicago
ended up in Atlanta. So, you know, it was hard to keep these titles square. But the show must go on, and that's exactly what the IFBB Pro League did.
5 months later.
And a guy named Nick Walker shows up, right?
Yes.
And instantly, you can see he's got a lot of people around. Like, he's got a lot of fans, a lot of groundswell, a lot of conversation and talk.
Right.
And he starts talking.
Yeah,
and it's out, and he's putting it out there. But you know what? You know what's cool? Like they used to say, Sean, if you can back it up, it ain't bragging, right?
Absolutely.
The kid backed up everything he said.
Yep.
Then he says, "All right, I won this show. I'm going to do this, and then I'm going to win the Arnold because the Arnold got extended.
Yeah,
right?
he made the prediction. You're right. It got pushed back to September.
And you know, we're going to hopscotch around here a little bit in the review, but keeping on with Nick, what did he do? He shows up at the Arnold and wins the Arnold.
Yeah, he made a name for himself in a big way because it's one thing to talk smack. It's another thing to actually back it up and legitimize yourself. But winning that contest in May made him a front runner for the Arnold Classic, which he kind of penciled in. But before we can get to the Arnold, we wound up in Atlanta, I think it was, or we wound up back in Tampa. We went to the Chicago Pro.
Yeah, Chicago
Pro, which was in Atlanta, and we saw Hunter Labrada win that competition.
You know, and this was no surprise really to anybody. I mean, you could see Hunter coming a mile away, you know. And listen, he had some good competition because before we get to the next one, Ian Valliere from Canada lit it up this year. He had, 2-3 wins to his credit?
He served notice. He won in Texas. He also won another one in the Tampa Pro. And then he wound up in the top 10 of the Mr. Olympia competition.
He had some new blood coming in this year, which was nice to see. I mean, even though Hunter's been around a couple of years, he's relatively new. Right. Nick Walker is new. A guy named Brett Wilkin comes in. He ends up winning a show, and boom, you know, he's on the table. Interesting, his name's on the Arnold list now for this year, but Nick Walker isn't. So Nick smartly, I think, Sean, smartly, is going to bypass. He's not going to defend the title.
He had a long run in 21.
Well, and listen, let's not forget, okay, the Arnold wasn't in March, it was in September.
Yes, we had more
October,
time.
November, December, January, February, March. That's only 6 months.
Right.
Because they want to get back on track. So we have an Arnold coming up back on first week of March. It's normal. If you're an athlete or you just got done competing in the Olympia, right? You've only got you'd be dieting right now.
Yeah, I mean, you have to be kind of like a Dexter Jackson type bodybuilder.
Good luck
guess
with that.
who is going in the 2022 Arnold? A former Arnold champion in the form of Brandon Curry. He's actually got his name on there. He's coming in, the number 2 bodybuilder in the world, a former Mr. Olympia, a former Arnold Classic champion. He will be there in 2022, but before we can get there, we're still in 2021. Because although Hunter Labrada winds up winning at the Chicago Pro, Ian goes out to Texas and wins there, holding off Steve Kuklo, who apparently was the odds-on favor. That didn't happen.
I'll tell you what, that Arnold was exciting because you're right. Kuklo comes in. Listen, he's a big man. He's 6 foot plus. 290 pounds, whatever he is, you know, I don't know what he whittled down to, but it wasn't much lighter.
Yeah.
And he was big, he was good, he was fantastic. But he just had that little bit that Nick was in better condition and he still had all the parts. Nick ain't short on muscle. So, and he edges Steve out. Now, a lot of people kind of did have it the other way, and I can see why you could make a case. I really didn't have any problem with the decision.
Yeah.
And actually, as it ended up, he ends up in third.
Right.
In that competition.
Arnold,
so he doesn't even end up in second place. You know, with Ian kind of, you know, swooping in there. But I did see Steve's name back on the list, though, for the Arnold. So he's not done. He's coming back.
You know, arguably Steve could have been second, but that's still not winning, and that's why we compete. But somebody that's starting to get used to winning, Nathan Diasha. He's slowly getting into the winner's spot by picking strategically the right contest. Went over to the UK and wins the Arnold Classic over there. Yeah. And he won the Yamamoto Cup. He got 2 victories this year. I think he won 3 times. He won another one.
Nathan's biggest issue and problem is getting here.
Yeah.
He's had some issues with his visa, you know, with getting out of the country, the COVID stuff, the restrictions, travel problems. So it's kind of frustrating because you want some talent like that to be on the Olympia stage.
Right.
And he's earned his right. But just like we saw with Hadi Chupan, right, some of these other athletes, Big Robbie even, right? Brandon apparently didn't have any problems coming back from Kuwait. This has become an issue and a problem. And a lot of these athletes now, like a lot of the Canadians, I know Chris Bumstead, Ian Valliere, his wife, which is Chris's sister, they've all moved to the States now.
Yeah.
I think if bodybuilding is in your future, if the Olympia is something that you got your target on,
Gotta be here.
it's kind of better to be here, right?
Yeah.
I mean, listen, if you're Hadi Choopan, you really got to start, even though he's a god in Iran, right? That's becoming a problem. You either got to get here months in advance and hope that the government gives you, because that changes all the time. Because
wasn't one of the problems for William Bonac was that he couldn't get here for the Arnold?
Bonac couldn't get here. He was, and let me tell you, I'm glad you brought that up. Bonac was supposed to be in the Arnold. He was the odds-on favorite. I'm not so sure if he shows up that Nick Walker wins.
Yeah.
If Bonac is Bonac.
Yeah,
right?
It could have been a more interesting story, but you know what?
But he couldn't get here.
But Nick Walker did serve notice at the Olympia and put William Bonac in that,
That's right.
rearview seat. But it does set the stage very interesting for 2022. Where is the surprise going to come from? Who's going to challenge Big Ramy? I mean, Brandon improved and threw everything he could. And in third place, Nick Walker, is he closing the gap on Brandon Curry? If he can get past Brandon Curry and he's standing there with Big Ramy, is he a better matchup?
Well, we've seen the rise of some of these young guys coming up, which is nice to see. Then you had some mainstays like Akeem Williams and some of these guys who didn't hit their best at the Olympic, but listen, they're still formidable competitors. And then you had Patrick Moore. Patrick came out a couple of years ago, and if you remember,
Patrick won the California Pro this past year.
Correct. And again, another strategic good move, right? Called it right, got himself back to the Olympic. We were really expecting big things from him. However, he just seemed to take a step backwards over the last, like a couple of years ago. He shows up at the Olympia. He takes 10th, I think it was, in his first debut. I'm dubbing this guy the Rookie of the Year.
Yeah,
right?
I got him in the top 6 of the first Olympia.
Listen, he was fantastic, and then for whatever reason, it seemed to just he
materialize.
Kind of lost his way in terms of prep or just bringing it, whatever. But it's interesting because all the scuttlebutt out there. Is he going to go to class? Maybe he should go to class.
Right.
Listen, I don't think you realize how big Patrick is. Okay?
He's a big kid.
Listen, could he do it? He'd probably have to take a year or two off of everything, of training and even looking at a gym. No, he just put a thing out which I really like, that he said basically, look, I ain't going nowhere, okay?
Right.
I'm here to do a job. I'm going to do that job. So he's fired up now. But I would like to see a Patrick Moore because he's good young talent.
Yeah, well, I mean, listen, the Mr. Olympia level is on another level. We've been waiting for Cedric McMillan to arrive on that level, as he does throughout the other shows that he's won over in Romania. He's won the Arnold Classic. He's won several shows, but when it comes to the Olympia, it just doesn't come together for him. And right now, Patrick Moore seems to be filling that spot where Cedric left off on the Olympia stage.
Listen, we've been talking about Cedric as long as we go back doing what we do with commentary and all that, as a potential Mr. Olympia. When he's got a physique that could literally beat anybody.
Yeah, I know. But sometimes I'm saying the Olympia stage is too big and too bright for some athletes.
And unfortunately now, because he has won the Arnold, right? That stage almost seems like it's become a little bit too much because we haven't seen the best from Cedric at that show either.
Yeah, and I think that window's closing if it has not already closed. Cedric is not a young guy. He's got to be somewhere between 42 and 46 years old, and we know that Father Time has no mercy except unless your name is Dexter Jackson.
Well, you know what? His name is back on the list, so he will be back in Columbus.
It'll be interesting
and
in 2022.
I think this is kind of a sink or swim for Cedric.
Absolutely.
If he can get his stuff together, he can beat any one of those guys. He can literally win another Arnold Classic.
And it's a lot of big. It's a big if. But we can't go without talking about Justin Rodriguez, who won over in Indy. He won the Indy Pro. I mean, and he qualified for the Olympia, so he's got to be in the conversation as one to watch in 2022.
Justin is a dark horse. He's better than you think he is. He's bigger than you think he is. He held his own.
He's got to pick the right shows.
He's got to pick the right shows, and he's just got to get his physique to match up a little bit more. He's so wide up top. His shoulders are so wide.
Yeah, he's got good growth.
It almost makes his legs look, and he doesn't have small legs. He's almost like a Brandon Curry.
Right.
Brandon, again, people, his legs are small. His legs are small. I don't know if you ever seen Brandon. His legs ain't small. Right. His upper body is just such a cartoon of those big giant arms he's got, right? And the beautiful chest and the beautiful small waist. And he's had to bring his legs up over and above to match. Listen, clearly the guy won the Olympia, so it's his show to lose at the Arnold. He's the highest ranking guy. It could be a great strategy, or it could backfire.
By winning the Arnold, you mean?
Yeah. If he wins the Arnold, obviously that cements him as the front runner to the O. Right? Blah, blah, blah. He's a former Olympian. Okay, we got all that. If he loses, though, boy, that really opens the door, Sean, for somebody else.
Yeah, because it almost begins the downward slide. However, I kind of know what that's like. I was 5th place one year in the Arnold and 2nd in the Olympia. Sometimes losing is good medicine, but for Brandon being the KG veteran, he knows there's a little bit of risk here going at the show. But also, that lineup looks very favorable for him, considering it's not an Olympia lineup.
It's, like I say, it's his for the taking. It's his for the win. If Brandon comes in as Brandon does, he wins.
Well,
they can't touch him.
I think in 2022, the big question mark is going to be, where's Hadi Choopan? What's he going to do? What does he got to work on? I mean, how does he How does he stay in that top 3 conversation?
Hadi doesn't have to do a damn thing other than to continue to do what Hadi does.
You hear that, Hadi?
He's very good. Listen, he's clearly one of the best in the world. His only thing is he's got to make sure he doesn't get too big, because that can block you out like a Bonac type of a thing.
Especially in the waist.
And he's got to keep in proportion.
Yeah.
The shoulders are a little bit
too
out of proportion with the legs, and that type of thing. If he corrects that, he can easily win. All those guys at the top have beaten each other. Big Ramy, all due respect, 2-time Olympian champ. He brought it this year, looked great.
But he's been beaten by a lot of those guys.
He's been beaten by Hadi. He's been beaten by Brandon. They all kind of beat each other, right? Ruli Winkler, who we haven't even discussed yet, right? I don't know where he's at in his career.
I don't think any of us know where he's at.
He's kind of found his way, wandered off a little bit where I don't think he quite knows how
He's got a lot of soul searching
how to bring it anymore,
Yeah.
but he's not a young spring chicken either, but we'll see if he can come back. He's a great people's champ. People love him. Hadi Chupan, Big Ramy, again, eked it out this year. Again, it was close.
Yeah.
But I tell you what, the big man's the big man. It's still a muscle show at the end of the day, right?
He's got to be the odds-on favorite.
Well, listen, he's the champ, right? You got to beat the champ. You have to knock out the champ? No, you got to beat him by 1 point.
Well, here's the deal. We got exactly 12 months to go before we're back in Las Vegas in the month of December, towards the middle of December, on a brand new stage. We've been talking about it, the Zappos Theater in the Planet Hollywood, bright lights, right before the new year, right before the holidays. I'm going to make a holiday out of it. I'm just going to go there and stay for like a week.
There you go.
And just absorb all that Vegas has to offer besides the Olympia. But plan early. It's a little chilly in the month of December. There's a lot of great shopping out there for Christmas gifts and the holidays and all that stuff. If you want to stick around and hang out, watch some football, take in the new year, plan in advance, because it's going to be a humongous event. Not to mention, I believe the prize money's even going up out there.
Prize money's going up. Big Jake has stated over and over he has no intentions of going backwards. Even in the COVID year, he went up.
Yeah.
Bigger stage, bigger prize money, more athletes. Big hats off to Jake for that. For keeping bodybuilding first.
Yep.
and elevating it, even though obviously the landscape was listen. He had every reason in the world to cancel the show. Let's face it.
Absolutely.
And Jake said, "No, we're moving on, and not only that, but we're going to go bigger and better." But it's going to be a Merry Christmas for somebody at that. Oh, bro, I tell you that.
Absolutely.
It's going to be a great lineup. I love that we're back in Vegas.
Yes.
Vegas. Listen, love Orlando. They've been a great host for us. Worked out fine. But I like Vegas, man.
Well, we'll all be there. We got 1 year to plan in advance. And again, if I'm you, I'm making it an extended vacation, because with the return of the expo at the new Venetian convention, it's going to be bigger and better and super, super exciting. Celebrating 58 years in December. Make sure you stay tuned to MrOlympia.com for all that. And of course, DigitalMuscle.com for the voice of professional bodybuilding. Bob Chick. I'm Sean Ray.